You have been running red lights, and I suggest that you stop.
Kick the door down and go for the things that you want in your life. I'm your host, Eric Brown, and with me, Mr. Mike Jones.
Hey, what's going on, Mr. Brown?
Man, Livin, the dream. How about you, bro? I love this topic.
I do too, man. And I'm going to just go back and say to our listeners, first of all, I'm going to encourage you to listen with the intent to be influenced.
Yeah.
And I am absolutely going to suggest that you stop kicking the door down.
Hold on a second now. We teach perseverance, man, changing your approach, doing whatever it takes to get to the outcome that you want. That's very contradictory than what we normally teach.
Okay, but we got to contextualize this, first of all. I'm going to say this. I have kicked down some doors that I later found out were locked to me for a very good reason, y'all. Sometimes what's behind the locked door is something that ultimately is not going to benefit you. Man, let me say that again, because somebody needs to hear that. There are some doors that are locked to you that are locked for a very specific reason. And when you go and kick that door down, you sometimes find that you may have been successful at kicking the door down. You may have been successful at getting what you thought you wanted, but you find out very shortly thereafter that that was not worthy of your time, your energy, or your perseverance.
Okay, so Mike, let me get this straight. You're actually suggesting then that they look for doors that may be unlocked to them in their lives.
Yeah, that is true, Eric, but I want to go back here for a second. I can tell you that some of the most successful things that I have acquired was truly knowing that I wanted something, but realizing that the timing may not be good for me at that time. So I persisted. I persevered by going back to that door again and again and again to check to see if it was still locked. I changed my approach in so many ways, and then I went and reapproached the door again. Some of those doors opened for me over time, and they opened when the time was right. However, there are some that never was unlocked, and I chose, after becoming more wise, not to kick those doors down. But the ones that I persevered and I persisted at by just simply going back to the door again and again and opening the door to find out whether or not it was available to me was things that I absolutely benefited from without having to kick the door down.
Okay, but Mike, how would we know, as the listeners out there, how would we know to keep persevering versus kick that door down or just go away? That door's not for us.
Yeah, so we really got to contextualize this conversation. So let's talk about some specifics.
Okay.
If the door is locked with an individual that you are pursuing and you go back and check that door and it is now double locked, my coaching to you, move on. Why would you want to be with somebody that does not want to be with you? And if you constantly keep pursuing that, and you go back and you find that there's now 3 deadbolts locked on there, there is absolutely a message for you that you should heed and that you should move on. I have often asked people in my life, why are you choosing to run red lights when it is clear that that person doesn't need or want to be with you? You are literally running a red light by continually pursuing them. And if you are successful, generally that is not going to turn out well anyway. So, but if we contextualize it one more way, where we're talking about you're going after someone that is interested in you. However, for whatever reason, even though you may not be able to define it, the timing is not right. It could be a person, it could be a job, it could be starting a business or writing a book. It could be a whole lot of different things. You have got to be willing to constantly change your approach and to persist and persevere forward. And as you are more aware of whether or not that is available to you or not in that moment, I am going to encourage you to absolutely respond in the appropriate manner based upon what you are receiving back from those situations.
Yeah. So, Mike, though, I feel like we've been taught that when you're rejected or you fail something, that we should just kind of give up. We kind of shut down in that situation. So, what coaching would you have to stay persistent in those moments when you face that rejection or you have those fears come up that you will be rejected?
And that is an excellent question, because we have all experienced rejection in our life. In fact, fear of rejection is one of the biggest fears that exist among mankind. So if I am in a role of a salesperson, I know that one of the things that I am going to have to become comfortable with is being rejected, because not everybody is going to say yes to me in the context of buying my product. So I have got to keep persisting forward, and it may not be with the customer that said no to me. That no is just another step in the direction that I want to go to get the yes. It may not be from that person. So let's be clear about that. But the opportunities for me are incredibly vast as it relates to me getting to some successes by having the courage to keep moving forward. Now, I can tell you, Eric, that was a situation in my life with my own father where I pursued a relationship with my father, an individual who was not in my life, but I wanted a relationship with him. I learned that the door was locked when I went out to pursue that relationship with my father. And I continued to go back to that door until I found an opportunity to open that door. Once the door was open, what I realized was that that was not worth the investment that I had put into it and would need to put into it moving forward in order for me to have that relationship. But I now had the information that I needed that allowed me to make a wise choice moving forward, that even though I pursued that, even though that I wanted that, you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away. And you got to know when to run like hell, baby. But you have got to be in the moment with what's going on and receive the information that's coming back to you to make an absolutely informed choice about the amount of energy and amount of focus that you want to give to that thing moving forward.
Yeah. So, Mike, I'm a little confused, though. So, how do we identify whether a door is just closed to us versus it being locked or even double locked to us? And how do we know when to be persistent or when to walk away or when to run?
Okay, so first of all, you got to know what your outcome is. If you know what your outcome is, then you know why you're going after this thing. After you have identified why you're going after this thing, then you got to talk about what's the benefit of it if I'm successful. If the outcome and the benefits are something that you know that you really, really, really want, I am going to suggest that you put some energy and effort into making that happen. If the approach that you used initially isn't working, change your approach and remain persistent. But you have got to know, by being in the moment and being honest with yourself in these particular situations, whether or not that door has multiple deadlock bolts on it, or whether or not there is a possibility that that thing's going to open for you today. Nobody else on this planet can make those assessments for you better than you can. So I would encourage you to thine own self be true.
Gotcha. So in that context, then you're actually reframing rejection as a positive, especially if you know what it is that you want and how you're going to get there.
Absolutely. And one thing that you got to get, that if you're going to play at this level, you get out of your little comfort zone. You're going to go for some things in your life. There is going to be some rejection that you are going to experience. You have got to understand that as a part of the process. That is not the end of the game. That is not the end of the story unless you now fall into a fear of rejection and you no longer make an effort to go for the things that you want. But I really want you to be aware that when those things involve other people, there is so much of that that you do not control, and so much of it that somebody else controls. So be willing to absolutely be honest with yourself as it relates to whether or not you are completely being rejected by somebody because they are completely disinterested.
Yeah, so Mike, who would you say is the toughest person to be honest with?
We both know the answer to that. It's yourself. And to thine own self, I say once again, be true in the context of this conversation.
Yeah, so if that's the case and the toughest person to be honest with is ourselves, how do we truly identify whether or not we should pursue this if we haven't achieved the outcome that we want?
Yeah, and like I said before, I think that the best thing that you can do as you are going for these things that you say that you want, you have got to be aware of how you are being responded to.
Okay, got it.
How you are moving this forward. If it is not trending in a positive way, then it is trending in a negative way. It is not neutral. It is not standing still. It is not static. It is very dynamic. So if you are willing to be honest with yourself, then tell yourself the truth about whether or not you just got a couple steps further into this or you keep getting pushed backwards. Because if it's moving backwards or trending backwards, I would encourage you to move on away from that locked door. If it is somehow proceeding forward and you can see it trending in a positive direction, I would encourage you to be patient and to persist moving forward until you run into that red light. When you get to that red light, stop. Do not run the red light. I'm encouraging you to be aware in this present moment that generally on the other side of that run red light is something that's not going to benefit you moving forward.
No, Mike, this is smoking hot, and I can definitely relate to it because as I was growing up, I really loved to ski. And I was in ski lessons most of my adolescent life. And once I got to a certain point, I plateaued. At one point, I didn't even want to go to the lessons anymore because I just wanted to go out and ski. However, I was not getting any better by not going to those lessons. So as I kept pursuing it and going to the lessons and becoming better and better, I ended up graduating that ski program at the top of the class. So I 100% agree. It might have been locked to me initially because I wanted to goof off and ski, but then that door opened for me and I went right through it. So it's some smoking hot shit. Man,
absolutely.
sure.
Beautiful example. And I got to say this, y'all. If you are not making the choice to live your life out on the edge, you are taking up far too much room.
Here we go now.